If you've ever tried to read the book of Revelation and just put it down, you're not alone. Most believers have been a little overwhelmed or intimidated by the book, not because they doubt it's true, because it feels genuinely impossible to understand. All the images and symbols, the numbers, all this competing to kind of confuse us, and we think it's hard to know what it means. But someone along the way probably told you it was better left to the scholars, or there were so many different views you really couldn't figure it out, that ordinary Christians shouldn't even wade into it, that we just need to be content with the fact that Jesus wins in the end and we go to heaven. Well, here's the thing though. Revelation is the only book in the entire Bible that promises a blessing to those who read it. God wrote it for everyday believers, for all believers in all cultures, in all times during the church age. We're meant to understand the end of the story. So today I want to walk back through the Nonprofit's Guide to the book of Revelation and tell you a little bit about the backstory of why this particular book came to be and why it's in the series. This is the Nonprofit's Guide to the book of Revelation. And all 8 books in the Nonprofit's Guide series have their own purpose, but this one gets requested more than any other. For people that are studying prophecy and want to get a grip on the book of Revelation, this one is often requested. People who have been avoiding the book of Revelation for years ask about this book first if they see it on the table. It always gets some interest, and I think I know why. It's not that they don't want to understand Revelation. It's that no one has ever really given them handles to confidently understand the book that didn't feel either overwhelming or sensational. You know, sometimes people get a little too sensational with the book of Revelation, and that turns people off as well. But what this book does, it has the same approach as the rest of the series. It's a visually structured framework to make Revelation approachable. Matter of fact, one of my favorite features in this book is in the beginning of each chapter, it has a diagram of all the chapters in the book of Revelation, and it tells you chronologically exactly where you are in that book. So by the time you're done, you have a good, without even looking at it, you'll have a good understanding of each section of the book and what it means and what is contained therein. So that one feature gets a lot of attention, and it's my personal favorite in the entire book. But this book is built on that visual framework that helps people understand it. One of my favorite college courses in college was a film analysis class. And I love that class. We talked a lot about story and story structure, but one of the professor's core lessons was this. Nothing on screen, when you see a movie from a good producer or a good director, nothing on screen, no detail is there by accident. Every camera angle, every lighting choice, every editing cut serves the director's overall vision for that movie. A great movie or a great film is a cohesive whole. It all works together. There's foreshadows, there's details. Every element on screen the entire time has a specific purpose. And I believe the same thing's true of Scripture. On a much deeper supernatural level, God is the author of Scripture. You know, God, our Scripture, our book, this 66 book collection that we read called the Bible is inspired by God. It's God breathed. We're told that in 2 Timothy 3:16. You can zoom into a single story in the Bible and it holds up. You can pull back to the chapter, then the book, and then you can see how it fits into something larger. The Bible is one grand narrative. When you pull back, you see this, that it's one complete story, one mega story, cohesively designed from beginning to end. That's why it's so sad when I see teachers downplay the book of Revelation or the end of the story, because it was meant for us to understand. Nobody goes to their favorite movie and walks out before the ending. The ending is the most important part. It makes sense of all the confusing things in the rest of the movie. So we have to understand the ending. Nowhere is that more clear than in the final book of Revelation. It's the climax of the whole story. Every chapter and every theme introduced in the early chapters of Genesis that build throughout Scripture find their resolution in the book of Revelation. The serpent who deceived in chapter 3 of Genesis meets his final judgment in the book of Revelation. The promise from Genesis 3:15, the first prophecy of a coming descendant of the woman who would crush the head of the serpent, the Redeemer, It's the proto-evangelion. It's the first prophecy of the coming Redeemer is finally fulfilled. The paradise that was lost is refound, is restored. Genesis 1 and 2 come full circle to Revelation 21 and 22 in an amazing way. Nothing is left unresolved. That's the point I'm trying to make. In the book of Revelation, nothing in the biblical narrative, nothing that you read anywhere else in Scripture is left unresolved. It all is completed in the book of Revelation. Now, here's why Revelation feels so confusing to most readers. John was a first century eyewitness and trying to describe things that he saw in amazing visions, and he had to use the visual language available to him at the time. Over and over, John says, it was like, it looked like, and he's describing it the best he can with what he saw. I'm sure what we have described in Revelation pales in comparison to what he actually saw. I remember going to the Grand Canyon a few years ago with my family, and you've heard about it, you've seen pictures, but nothing is like seeing it for yourself. When you see it for yourself in person, in real life, it is indescribable, and nothing you say in terms of trying to describe it when you come back and tell other people can even come close to what you actually witnessed and experienced. So the same thing with John. Poor John had a big, tall order here to figure out here how to describe these things. So here's the cool thing. Signs and symbols were the vocabulary for the realities that went beyond ordinary language. Revelation is full of symbols. There's about 404 of them. And half of them, there's 404 verses. And in those 404 verses, there's tons of symbols. Half of the symbols are given the meaning in the text. The other half of the symbols are given their meaning from the broader context of the entire Bible. So the symbols are only confusing when we read our own ideas into them. But when we study Scripture and compare Scripture with Scripture, every single symbol in the book of Revelation has a legitimate, concrete, literal correlation that we can understand. It's not that mysterious when we do the legwork. And I unpack that all in this book here. A careful, literal where literal and symbolic where symbolic reading of the book of Revelation brings the structure into focus. And again, those symbols all point to a literal thing that we can know definitively from Scripture. So it really is not as intimidating as most people assume. And the structure of the entire book is actually really clear. And this is what I highlight in that graphic that I was talking about. Chapter 1 kind of sets the framework, introduces everything, has the promise that those who read it will be blessed. It has the actual outline for the entire book of Revelation is given in chapter 1. Then chapters 2 and 3 are 7 letters from Jesus to 7 churches of the time. So that's kind of neat when you think about it. There's actually 7 additional epistles or letters in the New Testament housed and encased in the book of Revelation that were given by Jesus himself. So that's chapters 4 and 5. Chapters 6 through 19 cover the tribulation period. Last week we talked about the book of Daniel and Daniel chapter 9, which lays out the 70 weeks, and that last week of the 70 weeks is the 7-year tribulation period. Here in chapter 6 through 19 in the book of Revelation, it covers that 7-year period. Chapter 20 has the millennial kingdom. Chapters 21 and 22 have the new heaven, the new earth, and the new Jerusalem. So there's another thing that helps people understand the book of Revelation is it's chronological. Now, there are some spots where you pull back and you have a fast forward or a rewind to give the broader context. But generally speaking, the book of Revelation is chronological in nature. So that helps people understand it as well. So that's not chaos. That's a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a chronological telling of the story. It really is a lot like a movie where you do have these flashbacks and you have these cross cuts where you go from what's going on in the tribulation period to what's going on in heaven at that time, and you kind of go back and forth. It's kind of really a unique thing if you think of it in terms of being a movie with a director who placed every single detail there on purpose for us to discover. It's an amazing thing. So the blessing promised in Revelation 1:3 was written for ordinary believers, not scholars. Again, it was written for everyday Christians from every culture, every language throughout the church age, wherever in the world that the Bible would go. It's written for us to understand it. God doesn't promise blessings on things unless he intends to keep them accessible for his people. He wants us to understand this amazing end of the story that he's given us. So now, with that kind of overview of the book and kind of some highlights of why Revelation can be understood, let me just tell you a little bit about how this book came to be. This is kind of more of a personal backstory. And also, I want to share with you what happened after it was released. There was some surprising things. I've been writing the Nonprofit's Guide series for years now. And every time a new book comes out, you never really know what's going to resonate or what takeaways people are going to get or what they're going to most gravitate to. I hope and pray every time I write a book that God uses it in a powerful way, and I trust him with that. But this one, the book of Revelation, I started hearing something I did not expect. At speaking events and emails and different conversations I had with people kept saying different variations of this same thing. For the first time ever, I feel like I can finally understand the book of Revelation. And I never realized how practical it was. That's another thing. People think it's just heady stuff that old people in church study because they have nothing better to do. But there's so much practical application in the book of Revelation, particularly in chapters 2 and 3, the letters to the churches. That's the most critical application for us right now. And this one, here's another comment I heard over and over in one way or another. I finally understand the end of the story, which helps me understand the rest of the story. Over and over again, the comment I get when people read this book is that it doesn't just help them understand Revelation, it helps them understand the entire Bible better because they see how it all fits together and it all culminates in this last amazing book that God gave us. So that last one says it all. I mean, I think that's the most critical thing. That's an amazing thing that I hoped people would get from it. But apparently that is the effect that it has. When you know the ending, everything before the ending makes more sense. The struggles, the uncertainty, the moments when it feels like darkness is winning. I mean, how many of us can relate to that? We know that this is all going to be wrapped up in the end in a beautiful, perfect way. And we know what we're seeing right now is the groundwork being laid for everything that the book of Revelation talks about. Nothing that's happening today should surprise us when we look at the book of Revelation. It all makes sense. It's like putting on infrared goggles and being able to see the world in a new perspective when you understand the book of Revelation. So what unlocked it for people wasn't some new secret interpretation that I discovered. And I hear that a lot. Here are 10 secrets of Revelation. There are no secrets of Revelation. It's there for us to discover, and anybody can understand it. It was a few clear principles about how to read this book, paired with the visuals, the timelines, the diagrams, and the big picture framework that I kind of bring in the whole Bible to kind of unpack the framework of how Revelation sits in it. The same approach that has worked across the whole Nonprofit's Guide series. So same approach as the rest of the books. It seems to work. It brings clarity. And that's my heart's desire, is not to be unlocking some secret code or sensationalizing some aspect of the book of Revelation. I want people to understand it the way God intended it to be understood. Plain sense language. There's a saying that many prophecy teachers have said, Ron Rhodes and Dr. Walvoord and some other really amazing, profound giants of the faith have said, if the plain sense makes sense, seek no other sense, lest you end up in nonsense. When we start twisting scripture or putting a grid on scripture, that's when we get in trouble. But when we take it at its plain sense language, that it was meant for us to understand, it unlocks the entire Bible for us and makes it actually easier to understand. So, and here's what I want you to take away from that. A proper understanding of the book of Revelation does not lead to fear or confusion. It leads to hope and clarity. And that was true for all those readers and all the different people that I talked to that kind of share with me what they got out of this book. And it can be true for you. That's the thing. Any believer can pick up this book, work through it, and understand the book of Revelation in a very concrete, clear way. So this is pretty cool. Quick note. there's a link in the description that I'm going to share with you, and it is an affiliate link, which means I might earn a small commission if you buy through it. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and I'm only pointing you to it because I genuinely think this is going to be an amazing resource for you to get. But here's the thing. Let me land here. Revelation isn't the book that was supposed to scare you. It's the book that was supposed to anchor you to your future hope. When you know how the story ends, the New Jerusalem, the eternal state, God with us, we're in the presence of God, every tear wiped away, every people group in unity with God, it changes how you live right now. You can be so heavenly minded that you are actually earthly good. When you think about our promised future, it's going to help us to live better now. The people most engaged in mission are usually the ones who have caught the clearest glimpse of where all of this is heading. Knowing the ending does not produce passivity. It produces a purposeful urgency, and it produces extreme clarity on what our future holds and what we're supposed to be doing right now. So if this resonated with you today, check out the Nonprofit's Guide to the Book of Revelation. That's where the full framework is, and obviously there's a lot more jam-packed into this book. You'll understand every chapter of the Book of Revelation. It's the most requested book in the entire Nonprofit's Guide series, and it's available on Amazon. The direct link is in the description below. Well, listen, next week we're talking about heaven. I mentioned being so heavenly minded that we're actually earthly good. That's a little lead in and a tease for next week. We're going to talk about the Nonprofit's Guide to the book. Nonprofit's Guide to Heaven. So we're going to really do a deep dive on heaven itself and understand that, like we're talking about here with the book of Revelation. So I think you might be surprised how much the Bible actually tells us what we can know about heaven and our future in eternity. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you then.